All right, hello students. This video is going to get into the bulk of the North American Free Trade Agreement, also known as NAFTA. The previous video just set the foundation, laid the context for this within the realm of the Mexican economic crisis in the 1980s. So one of the solutions to this, and also just one of the solutions to a broader economic slump in the 1980s, I messed up the animation there. Bummer. There we go, was to open up more free trade measures. Okay, so we talked broadly about free trade. This is just giving us a little bit more detail. Free trade is sort of exactly what it sounds like. We're talking about the easing of protective trade restrictions that some economies will rely on during certain periods. What I'm getting at with that, if you are thinking of a period in history where countries actually increase tariffs, that is the opposite of free trade. So the period that comes to mind off the top of my head is the beginning of the Great Depression. Excuse me, when the market crashed in 1929, one of the measures the United States took was it raised tariffs, but it had a negative impact because it was a global depression, and surrounding countries, many of them very heavy trade partners with the United States, issued their own tariffs. So occasionally we will see what we call tariff wars, these protectionist tariffs that countries almost issue to retaliate against other countries' tariffs. We're seeing a little bit of that happen right now with United States and China trade, but that's another story. Let's get back to NAFTA. So again, the biggest concept behind free trade is reducing tariffs or eliminating tariffs altogether. Again, a tariff is a tax on imports, and if there are little to no tariffs, there's more of an incentive for countries to purchase products that were manufactured abroad for a cheaper price. Okay, so it's sort of a turn away from something like import substitution industrialization. It also does issue quotas on imports. So a quota is just a certain number of required products that are to be imported. So that's just a quota is just a number, right? But an import quota would be actually having numbers set aside for the amount of imports of a certain product. Okay. The other thing is that subsidies on certain products, government subsidies, we talked about those in the previous video, so check that out, were largely reduced. And this also makes it more difficult for certain products to be manufactured domestically, because if a subsidy is removed, then the price tends to go up. So let's say, for example, corn is subsidized in Mexico prior to the opening of free trade. Once the subsidies go away, corn may actually cost more when it comes from Mexico than it would cost when it comes from the United States. So that would cause the incentive for the Mexican government and Mexican people to import corn from the United States, even though it was manufactured farther away, simply because it's cheaper. All right, that's what free trade is all about. So that's why I said it's the opposite of protectionism or economic isolationism. Okay, so in general, the idea behind free trade is this: that countries should not prioritize as much their own economic self-sufficiency, that instead they should focus on what countries do best, okay? And that's in terms of economic production. If a certain country is really good at growing corn and growing corn cheaply, they should specialize in that industry, and then something else, let's say clothing, is manufactured at another country and then imported into that country for a cheaper price. So the idea is to try to reduce prices for consumers, but this also is complicated ethically because not all countries have the same labor laws, and so it can be exploitative for countries that pay workers very low wages. So this leads Mexico's economy to shift back to what it used to specialize in prior to ISI. So they focus more on agricultural production, the mining of natural resources, and also using the reserves of natural resources that were rich in Mexico, and also, like I just said, exploiting cheap labor. Okay, so again, as I said at the beginning of this video, NAFTA stands for North American Free Trade Agreement. It was agreed to in 1994. The U.S. president at the time was Bill Clinton. He touted this as an economic revolution, a way to bring the North America as a whole into an economically prosperous future. So it also involves Canada. I love this picture because I think it does a great job of explaining how much value of goods really we're seeing moving freely between these borders. Okay, we already discussed a lot of these concepts, so I don't want to sound repetitive. The general idea is that they're trying to reduce tariffs and all these protectionary measures that restricted free trade across North American borders prior to the NAFTA agreement. All right, so just reducing those taxes, reducing those tariffs. All right, this is also a way for the United States, because it really spearheaded NAFTA. I mentioned Clinton for a reason. They believe also that this is a great opportunity to sell U.S. goods to other countries because of the restriction of trade. The United States is a major automobile manufacturer, for example. Think about Ford and GM. So that was a great opportunity for the automobile industry. It also, we'll talk about this later, it allowed the United States to manufacture things like automobiles more cheaply because they could export the parts into Mexico, have them assembled more cheaply by laborers because they were paid lower wages. And then the finished product, the car, would just be brought back into the United States and the greater world to be sold. So we'll talk about that soon. Um, it also was seen as an economic boon, an economic stimulus to Mexico because they were able to trade more. Stimulating the economy often involves getting people to just spend their money more. Okay. My mom used to joke around that when she went on a shopping spree, she was stimulating the economy. So there you go. Again, goods are cheaper in price. And this also allows countries to invest more heavily in the Mexican economy yet again. All right. So that's really a major takeaway because ISI is gone. We're seeing many economic practices that are reverting back to the economic relationship between Mexico and the United States prior to the 1920s and 30s when import substitution industrialization was the lay of the land. All right, cool. So I'm going to embed these videos into our slides. I'm going to do one more on the pros and cons of NAFTA, for lack of a better phrase, the rise of maquiladora plants. But you all know that I'm taking off pretty soon. So if I don't get to doing that now, that will come. You will get that content. You will get that instruction. You just may not get it directly from me just yet. So stay tuned. Thanks so much for all your flexibility here. Don't want to get verklempt on a video, but this is a tricky time to leave before the school year is over, and I really, really want to support you as much as I can when I get back, so I hope these help. And that's it for now. So thanks, guys. See you later.